So let's just ignore the fact that I completely ditched my August TBR and went straight to reading all the audiobooks and all the contemporary romances. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my August wrap up and a kind of September TBR. I'm not doing my TBR game this month because I pretty much just want to have a month where I don't have any restrictions on what I can read. I can read what I'm in the mood for and what I feel like reading, considering next month is the month of my Charmed themed readathon. So I'd like to make sure that I'm fully prepared for that and I'm not going to be in a reading slump, and I'm going to be happy with all the prompts and the books that I choose for those prompts. We'll see how I go this month. It's going to be more of just a chilled reading month, I think. I hope. So the month of August started off pretty crappy. I got into a little bit of a reading slump again, and I didn't read any of the books that I had set out to read. I ended up DNFing 2 books, and one of the books that I was meant to be buddy reading, I'm not going to be trying to read that for a while. Like, I'm not DNFing it, but I'm not going to read it until I'm fully in the mood for it. Let's just get into it. I read, I think it was about 7 books, and I DNF'd 2, which is very rare for me. I usually just like to continue with the book. I don't really like DNFing too much, but I don't know. I think last month I just decided, you know what, life is too short to read crappy books. I'm going to make sure that if I'm not enjoying a book, I don't have to read it. There is no pressure to read it if you don't enjoy it. So that was me last month. The first book that I DNF'd last month was The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This was actually on my August TBR, and I DNF'd it because it just was not my thing. I wasn't enjoying it. I actually ended up trying to listen to this on audiobook, and I think I got about 150 pages in, and I got to a point where I was just like, what is happening? This is really weird. What is going on? I have no idea what's happening. I could compare it to when I was reading The Wren Hunt. It was a very similar reading experience, except I finished The Wren Hunt. I really shouldn't have finished The Wren Hunt. That one was essentially the same sort of thing. I was reading it, not really sure what was happening, not really caring, and I should have DNF'd that one, whereas I DNF'd this one. So like I said, same sort of experience, had no idea what was happening. The very beginning of it was quite interesting and I was invested, and then it just went in a very different direction and I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't keep up, and so I was just like, you know what, shove it. I don't care. As pretty as the cover is, I just wasn't enjoying it. And all I really knew about this was that it was a reimagining of Les Mis, and I don't know a great deal about Les Mis anyway. But yeah, it really just wasn't my kind of read, and I just didn't enjoy it, so I DNF'd it. The next one that I DNF'd was In His Office by Mia Fey. This was advertised as a standalone enemies to lovers romance. It was very odd. I was so excited because the premise actually sounded really good, but I'll read you what the blurb says anyway on Goodreads, but you can kind of get the gist of it anyway by the title and by the fact that it's advertised as enemies to lovers. Don't tell anyone about what happens in here. Never ever. Amelia is desperate. Her new boss is not only cold and arrogant, but also dominant and demanding. Apart from that, Robert Hardy looks like a GQ model, and she gets goosebumps every time she's near him. He has 2 firm rules for his company. Number 1, never get involved with a female employee. Number 2, never break rule number 1. His charming side seems to be reversed for clients. Nothing Amelia does ever seems to be good enough for him, and with each time she messes something up, with every unwritten law she breaks, she fears she will lose the job she needs so badly. Until Robert finally starts ordering Amelia in his office and tells her to close the door, for good reason. Suddenly, Robert starts breaking his own rules, as well as Amelia's heart. It seems like the first part of that book is what the blurb is, and then the rest of it is completely different. And from what I've read, from what people have said, there's a time jump as well at some point, and, you know, it was just different. And I wasn't feeling it, so I didn't want to continue reading it. I also didn't like the main characters. I found them quite annoying, both of them, and like Granted, with a lot of romances, they are quite similar, especially with the tropes and everything. They are very, very similar. So that wasn't the problem there. It was just that I didn't like the writing style and I didn't like where the story was going to go. Plus, at the beginning, there was like an almost rape scene, which is completely just glossed over later on. Like, they mention it, and that's how the two main characters meet, is she's been drugged and she's almost raped, and then he takes her home. I actually can't remember how he knows where she lives. I think he checks her wallet or something like that. But he takes her home and like saves her, and then she goes to make out with him. It was a very, very weird first meeting, and the fact that they gloss over the potential rape is ridiculous, at least from what I'd read, which was quite a bit. It does skip a couple of months as well from what I'd read, so you'd think that they would have brought up the potential rape, and you think that she probably would have been traumatized from the potential rape, but that's just me. But I feel like it was really glossed over, and I didn't like that. The other book that I did not finish, but I will continue, I'm not completely DNFing it or anything, I'm just not reading it at the moment, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree. I have it, but I've left it in the bedroom. But I was meant to be buddy reading this with a couple of people over on Twitter, and I did not finish it. I didn't finish it like I said I would. And I found that as soon as I started reading it again, I put myself in a bit of a slump, and I just couldn't get past it. I was just bored and tired, and I just was not in the mood to read it. So I do want to read it. Like, I am still interested in it, but I just don't want to read it right now. So I'm going to wait a little bit until I feel like I'm in the mood to read it like I was before when I started it. But I just feel like anytime I pick it up now, I get in a reading slump, and I don't want that to happen right now. So getting into the books that I did read, the first book that I read was So This Is Love, A Twisted Tale by, what is her name? Elizabeth Lim. And this is a twisted tale on Cinderella. I think I actually had this on my August TBR, so it looks like I did read a book from my TBR. But this one was actually given to me to read and review by Scholastic Publishing Australia, and I am so glad I love this. This really set the tone for my month of romance, because most of the books that I read in the month of August was romance books. I love Cinderella so much. It is my favorite fairy tale, one of my favorite Disney movies, and it was just so well done. I loved the idea of what would happen if Cinderella didn't try on the glass slipper, and we had to continue on with the story not knowing who the missing princess was for the prince. And we obviously get to find out more about the kingdom and the prince and the king, and it's a lot more info than just your basic Cinderella story, and it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. I really want to read more Twisted Tales because I think they're a lot of fun. They're very different. And of course, after I'd finished this, I went and watched the live action Cinderella, which is absolutely beautiful. I love that movie so much. It doesn't just focus on the romance and her trying to get the prince back. It's also her working out who she is and what she wants to be and why she wanted to be free in the first place. But it was really well done, and I highly recommend this if you love Twisted Tales and you haven't read this one yet. The next one that I read was Dating You, Hating You by Christina Lauren. As I said, August was a month of audiobooks for me, and I read a lot of Christina Lauren. I read the Beautiful Bastard series quite a few years ago. I think it was about 4 years ago now, because I have a bind up of it, and I read that, loved it, and since then I hadn't really read any Christina Lauren until I read The Unhoneymooners in the month of July, it would have been, and that was an audiobook as well. So all of Christina Lauren's other books other than Beautiful Bastard I have read on audiobook, and I've loved each and every one of them. So Dating You, Hating You was the first one that I read in August. I read this on Scribd, and I wasn't too sure about the narrators in this. They weren't exactly my kind of narrator, but I got used to them, and the people who narrated it also narrated another book that I read in August as well, and it turns out I actually enjoy their voices now, and I would like to hear more from them. But this one follows Carter and Evie, who immediately hit it off when they're at a Halloween party, and they are both agents working in rival companies, but they figure, you know, why not? Let's just date, see how it goes. It can't be too difficult. So they hit it off, they go for a date, and they just click really, really well, and they want to start a relationship together. But of course, problems arise. their two rival companies end up merging as one big company, and they basically have to fight for the same position, which causes a rift between them and makes them want to pull pranks on each other and cause mischief between one another despite their attraction. So it's not really a hate to love, it's more like we could have been dating, now I'm annoyed because we're in competition with one another. I had a lot of fun with this. I loved the atmosphere because it's completely set in Hollywood, and I loved the bustling atmosphere of the office with the agents and getting actors and competing with one another, and it was really a lot of fun, especially when they pulled pranks on one another. I really enjoyed that too. It was a good read, and I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. Next one I read was Richer Than Sin by Megan March. This is the first book in the Sin trilogy. I don't normally like to read romances that are in a series where they follow the exact same characters. I like them when they follow different characters. Like with the Beautiful Bastard series, it follows 2 sets of characters in each different book. It's not the same characters, and it doesn't just continuously follow their story. They're just in the background in each story, if that makes sense, and then it brings forward a new lot of main characters each book. But this one, I believe, is actually just a full-on trilogy. Like, it follows our main characters through this series. It was okay. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. This one kind of sounds like Romeo and Juliet, where we have this small town and there's 2 families in this small town who are feuding and have been feuding for years. They hate one another. The 2 families are the Gables and the Riskoffs. We have our main character Whitney, who falls for a Riskoff, and the story is set in flashbacks. So it starts off with her getting married, and then the guy that she's fallen for has objected to the wedding, and then it just skips to 10 years later, and Whitney has moved back to the small town, and it just does flashbacks between her and her relationship 10 years prior, and obviously what they're currently doing now. And I like the flashbacks. That was actually really good, but I also didn't really love the characters too much. I felt like Whitney was kind of whiny a lot of the time. It just seems too unrealistic now for me to believe that families that are feuding can actually hate one another this much. I don't know, that's just me, and I know this is like for the drama and the angst and everything, which I do like drama and angst in books, but it just felt too unbelievable now for me to believe something like this. Unless it was a historical romance, then I'd believe it, but more modern, I don't really believe that. I don't really believe that someone's going to let their last name determine whether or not they're going to be with someone. But I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was okay, like I said, and I did really enjoy the narration, but it was not my favorite. I kind of want to continue on with the series, but that'll probably like be a little bit further down the track when I can buy books again, because I'm currently on a book buying ban because saving for a house. Next book that I read was My Favorite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren, of course. So this one follows Millie and Reed. Millie and Reed have been best friends for goodness knows how long. They have a nice little group of friends, all guys and Millie, and they're all talking one day about this event that they have to go to, and they decide, how about we get real dates this time instead of going with one another, and see how that goes. So they end up making these online profiles so that they can meet dates. But Millie and Reed end up hooking up one night, and that sort of sets off a little chain of events and feelings and whatnot that progresses through the story. But they start off hooking up, and then they just decide, yeah, we'll just act casual, we'll start doing online dating and see how that goes. Then Millie gets told by the guys that her profile is way too boring. She needs to jazz it up a little bit so she can get guys that aren't dickheads responding to her profile. So she creates a profile that isn't obvious that it's her, because she uses a photo of herself, but you can't see her face. She uses her name, but it's not her first name. But she puts everything in the profile that is her and more in depth about herself, because she doesn't talk much about herself, about her family. Like, no one really knows who the real Millie is, and this profile sort of gives her the chance to do that because nobody actually knows who she is. And she ends up talking to Reed using this online profile, which at first it starts off as like a little joke, and then it progresses to being something more because it's too late to tell him, and he's kind of hung up on her. He wants to meet this girl that sounds absolutely amazing and doesn't realize that it's Millie. It's almost like catfishing, but I really enjoyed it because I like the whole like texting trope, or like the email trope, where the main characters are texting or emailing or talking to one another online, and they don't know who one another is in real life. I love that. I'm a sucker for that kind of trope. It was a really good story, and I think that was my favorite one of the month of August. It was just so much fun and so dramatic, and I really loved it. I really loved Millie because I could kind of relate to her as well. Yeah, and Reed was just the perfect guy. He was just amazing, and it really made me like the friends to lovers trope a lot more. Usually I'm a sucker for the enemies to lovers, but this one made me really like friends to lovers more. It was just really good, and it was just so wholesome with their little group of friends. Like I loved it. I loved each and every one of the friends. They were so funny. It was great. There were plenty of moments where I would actually laugh out loud at a lot of the stuff that they would say. I'm pretty sure there's one remark that someone makes about Benedict Cumberbatch looking like an uncircumcised penis, and I lost it. It was honestly hilarious. I ended up giving that one 5 stars. The next one that I read, I don't actually have my copy on me because I've lent it to one of my friends, but that was Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. This one I ended up giving 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but it was really, really fast paced, really intense, and I did enjoy quite a bit of it. I just didn't love it as much as I kind of hoped I would. So at the moment, after like a combination of reading Norse mythology and watching Vikings, I have been obsessing over anything Norse related, whether to do with the gods or the Vikings, and I've had this book on my shelf for about a year or so, I think, maybe a year and a half. I'm actually not sure when I got it, but it's been on there not too long, but long enough, and I was like, I'm really into the Vikings. I'm gonna read this and see what it's like. So this follows our main character Aelin, who is part of the Asker clan. So they're kind of like Vikings. I guess it's like they're not like, it's not historically accurate or anything, but it kind of takes inspiration from Vikings and warriors and all that. So she is from the Asker clan, and her clan, for as long as she can remember, for as long as their clan has been around, they've always been fighting this enemy clan called the Reiki clan. So every year, I believe, every year or every few years, they meet up on the battlefield and they just fight. That's what they do. That's what they train every day to do. They just fight each other, and that's it. That's their lives. She ends up finding her brother on the battlefield fighting for the Reiki clan, which is strange for her because she believed her brother to be dead. She ends up getting captured and taken to where the Reiki clan lived, their village, and she realizes that they're not different. They're very much the same kind of people. They may have different beliefs in some aspects, but they're essentially the same people. And she's amazed that her brother is living with them and not fighting them, and he's become a Reiki. He's completely forgotten about his Asker clan and his family, and he's got a new family. When their village gets attacked by what is deemed to be a legendary clan, I can't remember what their name is, but it's a clan that they've always thought just was a legend. It wasn't actually real. When they attack the village, she realizes we need to bring our clans together so that they can fight this common enemy, because otherwise we're gonna lose everybody. And of course, in amongst all of this chaos, she ends up falling for a Reiki. She ends up falling for a Reiki by the name of Fisk, who I absolutely adore. I think he's a great character, definitely one of my favorites. It's just chaotic and fun, and like I said, really fast paced. It reminded me of Daughter of the Pirate King, in the fact that everything happened was just bam, bam, bam. It was just straight, non-stop. Something was always happening, and I enjoyed it. Like I said, didn't love it, but I still enjoyed it. The next one that I read, of course, is another Christina Lauren book, and that is Roomies. I was a little bit hesitant to read this one because originally when it came out, I thought it was going to be like a roommate romance, like how you become roommates and then suddenly, oh look, we have an attraction, but we're trying not to because we're roommates. No, this is quite different. This actually follows Holland and Calvin. Calvin is an Irish musician, and he busks, plays in a band, and Holland has had this big crush on him for like a year because she sees him in the subway station quite a lot. So she's made sure that her route goes past him so she can see him every day, and she made up a name for him. She was calling him Jack for a while there, and she made up like stories and whatever for him, but she didn't know who he was. She just had this crush on him for whatever reason. You know how you have a crush and you don't know why you have that crush? She had a crush on Calvin. The place that she works for a theatre company with her uncle, and she's kind of just like a salesperson. Like, she's not really sure what she wants to do. She wants to write, but she's not really sure like how to go about it. She's sort of stuck. And so she's just working in the theatre company. And it turns out that their guitarist has actually quit, so they need to find a new guitarist. And that's when she's like, hey, I know this guy who plays in a band and who busks down at the subway station. How about we try and get him to audition? So they do that, and she gets Calvin to audition for this part, and it turns out he is absolutely perfect. Everyone wants him, but then he confesses that he's in the country illegally. And he has been for 4 years. And the only way that they can think of to deal with this, or at least what Holland can come up with, is to marry him for a green card. So that's how it all starts. They get into this little fake marriage, and of course it just ends up being like a lot more romance and feelings than they had expected there would be. And I had a lot of fun with this because I think Calvin was great. I loved the fact that he was Irish as well. And then the narrator actually, I think she is Irish, I'm not too sure, but either way she put on an Irish accent for him, and that just made it 10 times better. So it was really, really good. It wasn't my favorite one, but it was a good story, and I could relate to Holland because of the writing aspect, because she's a writer and she wants to write, she just doesn't know what to write yet. It was just really good. I liked it. It was a lot of fun. So I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. And the last one that I read in the month of August was Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I've had this on my shelf for a while, and I've been wanting to read it because I absolutely love the movie. It was definitely different than the movie. I'll say that now. It's not at all like the movie. It's two very, very different things, and I do love the movie more. But this reads more like a fairy tale. It's more like when you pick up any of the Grimm's fairy tales, that's how it reads. Everything is very poetic and whimsical, and the characters are very, I wouldn't say one-dimensional, but they're very straightforward. There's not really a lot of depth to them, but I loved the fact that it was like a fairy tale. That was my favorite part about this. And as short as it is, don't be deceived by its shortness, because it is quite dense. It took me longer to read this than I thought it would, and it's only almost 200 pages long, so surprisingly dense. But I did enjoy this. And if you don't know what the story of Stardust is, the movie and the book, they have the same characters, but the main character in the film is Tristan, but in the book his name is Tristram, so there's just an extra R in there. I never heard that name before. But so we follow him and his journey to catch a fallen star for the girl that he's currently in love with. He lives in England, and there is a wall that separates his village and Fairy, which is essentially what it's called, which has a bunch of different kingdoms, and it's just a continuous place of magic and whimsy. In the film, the characters don't actually know about the magic and the fact that magic is real, whereas in the book they know. They usually travel across the wall to go to the magical markets that they have every so often, so they make that a thing, which I did like. I liked that it was definitely more magical realism than it was like, oh, look at this separate world, like nobody knows about this. But yeah, so this follows Tristram and his adventure to catch a falling star, who he finds out is actually in the form of a human. He intends to bring her back to the woman that he's in love with, and along the way there's a lot of obstacles that they have to face and a lot of adventures they come across. Plus there is also witches who are trying to get the star as well, because the star, if they eat her heart, will make them youthful and beautiful again. And there is also the princes who are trying to become king. They want to get the star so that, one, they can be youthful as well for that, but so they can get the locket that had knocked her out of the sky, so that'll mean that they're the kings. The princes are quite violent with one another. They definitely try and kill each other. And the best part I love, so all the dead princes, they still hang around until the new king is crowned, and that happens in the film and the book. I think it would just be pointless without the ghosts, because they're hilarious. I love their commentary. But yeah, so you've got the princes out for the star, and the witches looking for the star, and then Tristram just wants to bring the star back to Victoria. And that's it. It's a lot of fun. It's very adventurous, and I really enjoyed the fact that it was like a simple little fairy tale. And of course I watched the movie right after this. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. There you go, guys. That's the 7 books that I read in the month of August. And like I said, with my September TBR, I'm not going to do my TBR game. I'm just going to do a free-for-all and just read whatever I am in the mood for. Let me know if you read any of these books, guys, and let me know if you think I should pick up those books again that I DNF'd, especially The Court of Miracles, and if you think I should continue on reading The Prior of the Orange Tree sooner rather than later, or what you thought of the books that I DNF'd. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, the usual stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!